to us about the film. It's a bit of a mic issue, so we'll shout, and if you're asking a question, just ask loudly. So somebody once said that making a film takes 3 years of your life. Do you think we're kind of getting there? Is that nearly true?
Actually, when I think about it, something like that, it's certainly it becomes your life for that much time, whether or not making it takes that much time. And actually that's quite short for a film. You know, there can be films that you work on for such a long time. We got involved with Cherrybomb sort of fairly late on, I suppose. The script had been written and the production team was sort of in place.
I think the guys who were working on it before had been working on it for about 5 years before.
Yes, Dara Carville who wrote the script and Michael Casey, who's one of the producers, they'd had the project going for a while. And so we got involved with the script about a year before we started to shoot, and that's about 2 years ago now. So yeah, 3 years. It's been a good 3 years though. It's been great.
Myths are true. Did you? It always feels like such a Belfast film for me, but it's about a new Belfast. It's very much about this new kind of a new younger generation in Belfast, new buildings going up, new developments everywhere. And was that actually in the script, or did that just something that emerged when you were sort of doing locations
Well, it was in the script, but initially the script, in one of its incarnations, was really, Dara grew up in Armagh, so in quite a, more of a country sort of, not quite such an urban environment, and it was really a lot of stories loosely connected around him and his friends at the time. And I guess when we first read it, it was practically a period piece, it really felt like Armagh in the 1980s.
Oh really?
And yeah, it was called Sin Spree, and it was about the boys doing various things that were breaking sins. And we sort of felt, when we came on board, the guys had already sort of developed the script to a certain extent, but were keen to sort of take it to somewhere else. They themselves, Brian and Dara, felt that maybe it should go somewhere else, and that's sort of where we came on board.
Yes, I think they wanted us to bring sort of, just have a fresh look at it, and to try and place it somewhere a bit more contemporary. So what we really loved about it, I think, a few things that we really loved looking at the original script, one of which was the camaraderie and the friendship between the boys. There's the real energy and that kind of banter between them, but also real warmth that you can really feel at the heart of that friendship. But also what's great is that it takes place over this really crazy weekend, but essentially it's a coming of age story, and to be able to tell that kind of rites of passage story just with in a very tightly constructed events of a weekend, I think it's lovely for a film. But what we also really thought then is that for teenagers growing up here nowadays, in our generation we grew up with the Troubles being a really defining kind of part of living in Northern Ireland. But for teenagers now, for young people of the age of the people in the film, that's something from the history books, So I think it's something that some young people get a bit. Certainly talked to teenagers at the time we were developing this, who I think sort of felt slightly frustrated that the place they lived in was completely defined by this, and they just wanted to be living their normal lives and doing the things that kids in any town in the UK or Europe or wherever were doing. So we really wanted to, I suppose, reflect that, and we thought this sort of, the fact that Belfast was a city sort of looking for its new identity after having been through that very troubled history really chimed with what the characters were going through, that same sort of rites of passage story that they were all involved in.
I think even for me it's a really fresh film. It looks fresh and it feels fresh, and of course it is populated by very fresh young talent. And you can't talk about it without talking about the cast, obviously.
Yes, the lovely cast.
I know they're a lovely cast, but it's it's a fabulous cast, and obviously it's probably in your wildest dreams you couldn't have asked for a better cast really anyway. But how did you actually manage to get everybody on board, and what was the whole process like? Really, could you just talk people through it? Because I'm sure that's what everybody's dying to know. How did you get Rupert and how did you get Robert?
Well, initially the casting process, we did an awful lot of casting around locally. We went around a lot of schools here looking for the boys. We went and Michelle, and we went down south, saw a lot of people. But then, you know, the script was sent out to various people, agents saw it, passed it on to Rupert. And,
Yes, through the casting process, it's sent out to various agents, and you know, some people come back and say, "Wow, you know, this is something we'd really like to do, or a client would really like to do." And I think that happened with Rupert around the same time as we actually met Robbie for the first time down south. And I mean, the characters in the film are 16. All the actors are a little bit older, as you might know, and it's all the actors that we did cast. They've all had some, you know, obviously with Rupert and with the other two as well. They've had experience on feature films, and I think they're all quite big dramatic roles to be taken on by people who, you know, are just starting, you know, or haven't really done much film work before, and that applies to a lot of, you know, really young actors. So I think the boys, we cast everyone around about the same time, and we were always looking out for what the dynamic was going to be between the three, because that was obviously the most important thing about the film. So I just think we got lucky in a lot of ways that we met the right people.
So much of filmmaking is the planets just aligning, and you know, you can try your best to make these things happen, and they tend to just have a way of working themselves into, you know, the way they're going to be. So yeah. I'd like to say it was all really carefully crafted, but
I'm sure the producer would love to hear you say it.
No. We work with wonderful producers.
No, but there is a lot of luck involved.
There is.
Yeah, I think even most producers would say that, you know, just to
Yeah.
get everything coming together on the day is a tricky thing. You
It
know,
is.
and that's
And I think with cast as well, you sort of have a feel of the character that you're looking for, and you know, it can take a little. We had seen a few guys, certainly, as you say, before we found Robbie, before Rupert came along, but you know, and it's not about things like hair color or height or things like that. You just have a feel for the character that you want to get there, and then when you find it, you really know. So that's I think why it feels like a real nice piece of luck.
Yeah, I mean, we saw an awful lot of really talented actors from here, but they just weren't right for these roles, you know. And you know, we hopefully will use those people in our next projects, whatever. You know, they're certainly people that we're going to come back to.
So it's your first feature, obviously, so was it actually intimidating, sort of stepping onto set for the first time and that whole thing?
Yes, I think stepping onto set for the first time, I think it's a bit scary on the first day. With the short that we did before, we really did one kind of proper short before we did this, and it had quite a big crew and a great cast, and I think stepping onto that for the first day was
petrifying.
Frightening.
Not sure I took my headphones off for the first hour and that. Hid behind the monitor and was frightened.
So we sort of knew what to expect from the set, just, you know, how many people there are around, and you know, just the bustle of everything and having to concentrate with all of that going on. But yes, it was pretty, you know, it's a pretty intimidating prospect to walk onto a feature, because you just, you know, it's a month or, you know, 5 weeks out of your life, and you know, you just hope everyone's going to get along and it's going to start well, and there's so many big picture things that you don't have to really worry about on a short.
We were really lucky with this feature, because we did have so many great people around us as well. I mean, again, a lot of filmmaking is it's so collaborative. It's all about the people that surround you. So we were lucky to be working with a director of photography who we'd worked with before and knew really, really well. So that relationship was in place. Our producer, Mark Huffman, who really sort of came in, you know, after Michael, sort of brought us on board.
Mark and Simon at Generator, who really dealt with the production. I mean, just the machine just ran really beautifully from the beginning, so that was lovely.
Mark has worked, as you know, on some really big movies, so you know, to have his experience, and he was always a fantastic sounding board, and you know, you couldn't have wanted anything better for a first-time director. It was amazing to be working with him.
But it's also, I mean, I think the feature's so much bigger, and you know, financially, even apart from anything else, and you just feel that, you know, just jumping up from a short or two, people are, you know, they're placing a lot of trust in you to be able to actually make it happen, and I think that sort of responsibility is pretty huge when you say.
Yeah.
So.
Does it sort of help that you have each other? I mean, I always would wonder how you kind of divvy up who does what, or I imagine that the two of you sort of having huge arguments. No, I want to do that scene that way. No, I want to do the scene that way, or something. I just wonder how you actually
we do. I mean, but
work through that.
Well, the interesting thing is that I guess in the development process and in preparation, we are asking each other the difficult questions, and we don't always agree about everything at that stage of the process. And we're asking each other backwards and forward why we want it this way, or what do you think? I mean, more often than not, we do agree, but there are times where there is a debate about it, let's say. But the good thing is that by the time you get on set, you've sort of worked through a lot of those issues.
It sounds like but you're absolutely right. I think there being two of you makes you really rigorous in the preparation, because you're constantly asking questions and challenging things. So whilst obviously a lot of spontaneous stuff happens on set, you know where the answers are going to come from if you need them, to do new things. So we didn't really have arguments on set.
We don't. And actually, we do trust each other's opinion. Really, I mean, we've been working together for years and years and years outside of filmmaking. Even I worked as a graphic designer for many years, and I worked as a writer. And we collaborated on projects even through all that period. So it's not like we just sort of come together for this film. It's a process of probably 10 years running up to that, working on smaller projects and building up to this.
That's right.
So that definitely helps.
Yeah, if we didn't feel we had a good shared vision, there would be no point in doing this together, because it would just be a nightmare. If you were at loggerheads all the time, we do it because it's fun to work together, really.
The other thing too is, I mean, I guess our backgrounds are so, I come from a visual background, maybe Lisa's from a slightly more literary background, so we do have a slight division on what, the way we look at things, but, so.
Yeah, I would tend to work with the actors more, and Glenn perhaps with the cinematographer more, but it just crosses over a lot.
Crosses over.
Thank you. So, what's next for the film? There's been a huge, there's been a lot of obviously debate on the internet and Facebook, and I know you have your own feelings about the Facebook page, but I know there's a hotbed of activities. They're trying to get it released in America. Is that going to be happening?
Yeah.
Or?
That's right. Yes, we've had a huge amount of support from. We've got a couple of familiar faces in the audience who've come and from Rupert's fan sites who've travelled and with us to various screenings and supported the film. Right from the word go, right from when it was being shot, and it was a difficult time, I think, in the last year or two with the recession, etc., to get small movies out and distributed, and they've been hugely instrumental in helping that happen and helping it get to the attention of everyone by internet campaigns, etc. I think especially for film for a young audience, that's hugely important nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. The work of all the fans online has been absolutely amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, the fan buzz around Cherrybomb has been phenomenal, really.
Yeah, no, we couldn't be more pleased.
I know, they've been really good to the film, and we really appreciated it.
And it wasn't such a painful experience that it hasn't put you off doing it, because you're doing it again.
We are.
Which QFT, we're all really excited about the next film, and we're all already kind of campaigning to get it here when it's done.
Brilliant. I'm excited.
Good Vibrations. So, I mean, people probably know about it a little bit already, but would you like to sort of say a little bit about it? And maybe, there's open casting going on, isn't there? So
yes, I'll tell you about that. Yes, Good Vibrations is a story. It's set in Belfast too, but it's set during mostly around the 1970s, and it's really the story of Ulster punk through the life of local legend and record shop owner Terry Hooley.
Next mayor of Belfast?
Apparently, yes, that's another Facebook campaign to have Terry created next mayor of Belfast. I don't know how it's going, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, put it that way. But Terry's an amazing character, and during the height of the Troubles, when everything was closing down all around him, he opened up a record shop on the most bombed half mile in Europe, Great Victoria Street. I called it Good Vibrations, and it's really the story of Terry and his discovery of this very underground local punk music scene, and his drive to really get those local musicians out there, heard by the world, and and through him really punk music became this engine to kind of bring this city, which had been sort of so oppressed by the Troubles, back to life in some kind of way. So it's a brilliant script, really darkly comedic by local writers Glenn Patterson and Cole Carberry, and we're very excited about it. We hope to shoot it later in the summer, and we're having our first casting session on Sunday. We're looking for young local musicians. We're looking for, specifically for this casting, we're looking for young guys
16 to 25
to play members of the bands that were around at that time, like the Undertones, Rudy and the Outcasts. So check out our Facebook page. It's Good Vibrations, the film, and there'll be details there if anyone knows any friends who might fancy coming along to that.
I'm sure people have got plenty of friends who'd be interested in enough of me, I think. Does anybody have any questions? It's a little bit dark in here, so stick your hand up and or just yell out. Anybody? Go for it.
We know that in the pool room, the walls are covered really in paintings, and you decided to put up these white walls. How did that come about?
That was a very practical decision, as I remember. There were lovely murals in the pool rooms, but they were very expensive to do. I think, in fact, they had been created by a mural painter who had designed the murals in Elton John's house somewhere on the Riviera. So we were told. Anyway, they didn't want us to go near them with graffiti paint or anything like that. And so we really wanted to rough up the place a bit for that pool party scene, and so we just thought it'd be safer to cover them up.
There was also an element of, in a lot of the scenes, we were trying to limit the amount of colours that were on screen at any given time. They were incredibly multicoloured, so it was about limiting the palette too. So it served a double purpose for us, so it was quite good.
Anybody else? Go for it, Lydia.
Why is it called Cherrybomb? Did you go through several titles before that?
Why is it called Cherrybomb?
Simsbury was the only title before that, which was when it was in its a very early stage of the script, when it was about the boys sort of trying to commit the deadly sins one by one. Glenn came out with Cherrybomb, so maybe you should explain it.
Well, there's a track by the band called The Runaways called Cherrybomb, and David Holmes, who did the score. We worked quite closely with David even during the development process, where he makes us up CDs and we listen to stuff, and that sort of influences the way the scenes will play out and whatever. One of the tracks that kept coming up on all the CDs was The Runaways' Cherrybomb, and it has very appropriate lyrics. And I think David and I were at a party, and it was about 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was playing, and we suddenly the light bulb went on. It was like, the film should be called Cherrybomb. So, and I think it has layered meanings as well. We kind of like that it doesn't just mean one thing; it means a lot of different things, and there's some obvious and some not so obvious.
Yes.
So
I suppose a couple of the obvious ones are to do with the fact that Cherrybomb is a firework, and so not only do we have a lot of kind of fireworks as being one of the things that the kids sort of play with during the course of the film, but it's also a nice metaphor for this character Michelle, who comes and who sort of lands in the middle of these boys' lives and has a genuinely explosive impact. So we thought it's nice. It's a nice play on various different meanings of that word.
I mean, it does have an amazing soundtrack, obviously, and obviously, sort of renowned composer, sort of film score person, David Holmes on board.
Yeah.
I mean, you're very, very obviously wonderful to be able to.
yeah, no,
Absolutely.
it's really amazing. I mean, again, whilst Lisa and I have collaborated on many projects for many years on before film, again with David Holmes, we've been collaborating on projects for many years before film. Some of my early things in film were shooting promos for him, pop promos, and I did a lot of his record covers and stuff. So Lisa did writing for the insides of his record sleeves, and so
Yes, her stories, but yeah.
so we've all been collaborating for many years.
Yes, I mean, David's one of our best pals, and it's just nice because we, probably 15 years ago, we all sort of sat around together and said, it'd be great if we could all make films together someday, and so it's just really nice that
Here we are.
it's happening.
It took us 15 years.
Well, yes, you got there. Some people never do. Does anybody else have a question? Go for it.
I just don't know much about making movies, so I'm just curious about this. I thought the soundtrack was really amazing, especially the, certain interlude that kind of repeated itself a lot. I was just curious how you or whoever did went about making the
I mean, it's a really, it's a big part of, creating the emotion of the film is in the music, and so those decisions are really important and ones that you spend a lot of time over. Obviously, working with a really world-class person like David Holmes is a big part of that, because he brings so many ideas and I guess it really understands how music and emotion really work together in the film. So that was a good place to start. And he would also, as Glenn said, he would, as we were developing the script, even from the early days, start to feed ideas in about sound. I think sometimes music is dealt with really late on in the process and kind of bolted on at the end of the film. But we were really keen that the music was a really integral part of the development. Not just because music is a big part of the life of the two boys, the two friends, but it was again about, looking at Belfast in a new way. There's a really vibrant local band scene here, as you know, and we wanted to involve some brilliant local artists, whose songs are featured on the soundtrack. So that was really important to us too. So there are several tracks that you'll have heard in there that are by brilliant local musicians like Cashier Number 9 and Robin J. Shields and various others.
There are two sort of distinct strands to the soundtrack as well. There are bits that David composed, and I think maybe those are the bits that you're talking about, the repeated themes that sort of come up. And then there are also, I suppose, needle drops, which are just the source tracks that we bring in, that by bands. Having a really talented composer, music producer like David is fantastic, because we can talk about the emotion of the scene or whatever, and he very instinctively has a great grasp of that. He'll play us things, and we'll temp a score as well. He will play tunes in that won't be his own compositions. There'll be other things that we're not going to use, but it's just to get a mood for that scene and see how the scene plays out, and then we can kind of play around with that a little bit. We find a mood that's right, and then he'll take that track out, and then he'll compose something that has the same mood but completely different. So that tends to be the process.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you associate certain themes with certain characters, and those pieces are played again when those characters come about, or when you're looking to create another mood again or remind the audience of a certain mood, you refer to that piece again. So it's a really fascinating part of the process.
One of the other things I love about it, actually, and I think it's you, being a graphic designer, is the use of texting.
Oh yeah.
Am I reading too much into that?
No, definitely. I think
I just think it's really lovely, novel way of everybody, any teenager, their life revolves around their mobile phones.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way of introducing that.
Well, we definitely thought you can't have a modern day story about teenagers and not have texting being a major part of that. And what we didn't want to do was the obvious thing to do would be shots of screens and people typing things, which can look a bit dull. Yeah. Certainly it's something that does interest me, typography and type mixed with the visual, with the photographs. So yeah, that's definitely something that we worked on.
Oh, I'm glad I got that right then.
Yes.
But no, it was nothing we did it. Something else went wrong. Does anybody have another question? Yes, at the back. If you wouldn't mind speaking up.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thank you.
I'm a visual person as well, so I enjoy the locations. It's curious, actually, I've been in some of the houses, particularly one that James Nesbitt was in, so it was really nice. How do you go about picking the locations? Because I thought they were very appropriate. And lastly, how do I get my house selected?
Do you want it selected? I'm not sure you do.
Really? Yeah.
Well, and how much maybe I should have
Oh goodness, let me tell you, it wouldn't have been very much. We weren't working with much of a budget, and I don't know whether you want 50 crew members tramping through your house over the course.
We're very respectful, but at the same time,
they were very respectful to all properties.
It's just how you brought them all together, because I thought, while it's a new Belfast, it didn't come across as Belfast. I thought it had much more sort of broader flavour than that.
Yeah, I think that's what we were looking for, definitely. So I'm glad that came across. I think the start of looking for the locations is, you sort of work out. It all comes from the characters in a way, doesn't it? You're trying to get a feel for who they are, and you know, where they come from and how you sort of express that best, you know, by their environments, their home environments. So that's one thing, I guess. And so we just have really detailed conversations with, you know, the art department of the film and the people who are working in the locations department, and they sort of come back to us with ideas. I think some of the houses, if you're going to shoot in real places, some of the houses they would go to estate agents. Maybe.
Yeah, I think sometimes estate agents, you know, houses that are up for sale, you know, of course, some people maybe aren't as worried that there's going to be whole loads of crew tramping through them, and they're quite happy to take the money, and like some of those houses could be empty, but also furnished as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's can be a starting point sometimes.
That's right. Some of the houses, though, at least one of the places that we shot, Malachi's house, there was a family living there. So I don't know whether, you know, we had a sort of idea of what kind of street we wanted it to be on, and whether or not they actually just went and asked people. I'm really not sure how that.
I think sometimes they do that too. I think there's can be an element of a cold call where they can just, you know, call into places if it was a specific area or house. I think the production team would just call in and maybe ask them. And also, I remember as well, people sort of mentioned to other people that they knew. You know, we were looking for things and they weren't keen on it, but they said, "Oh, we'll refer you to somebody else," and they might be. So I think that was the process.
Yes, and I suppose the public locations, like we had quite a clear idea of what we wanted the Leisureplex to be like, and a lot of that is in the art direction, I think. The very kind of heightened world and patterning that you find in there. So we just, you know, we went and looked at, and talked to various people in the leisure centres, and it's finding out about the practicalities, what's available when, and what sort of feels the way you want it to feel. So, you know, you're lucky if one place turns out to tick all of those boxes. But we were really happy with that, weren't we? With the Titanic.
So how, because I think for the next film, because it's obviously set in 70s, you know, bomb hit Belfast, that's presumably going to be quite a challenge for locations then?
It's a challenge for locations. It's also a challenge for budget, because that's the type of
It's
thing
a period film,
it's a
really.
period film, and that's the type of thing that really sucks up money, because, you know, every car in the street has to be from, you know, that time, that period, and that costs you money. So you can't just rely on what's there around you, you know.
Well, we've got some, I mean, it's, a lot of it is, you know, kind of naturalistic, but we've also got some quite interesting sort of graphic strands, almost sort of comic bookish parts to it, and also some quite surreal sequences which will all be done in completely different styles. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to play with as well.
Can't wait. I'm done. Has anybody got another question? Probably got time for about two more. Yes?
I was just wondering, what was your process with the actors to create the characters? Because they're very vibrant characters. Did you spend a lot of time in rehearsals, or how did you work with them?
We did have a few days beforehand. You never get, you know, weeks, but we had a few days, you know, before the shoot, and all three of the lead characters were able to come over, and we didn't really want to over-rehearse the scenes, because, you know, you want to keep a really nice freshness whenever you are shooting. But what we really wanted was for them to get a chance to know each other and just feel relaxed with each other. And also what we did, I suppose, was to sort of just chart the emotional journeys through the story, just sit and talk about the characters a lot, talk about what they felt was going on with the characters, each other's characters, what was going on at the big kind of emotional turning points of the story. So it was really that, just kind of tracing those journeys, wasn't it? And we did do a bit of rehearsal, but a lot of it was about, you know, understanding what the emotional pitch of each kind of big moment was. So difficult when you're shooting, because everything's out of order, you know, you're not shooting chronologically. So I think that work kind of really helped, because I think they feel really, what I like about their performance, I like many things, but I think they seem to feel really comfortable around each other, and I think on set when there isn't much time, it's great that there's a bit of a shorthand to say, all right, well, this is the moment where I'm in this kind of, this stage of my journey. I think that was useful, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably got one last question. Anybody? Yes. Sorry.
Are the characters based on anyone in real life?
Are the characters based on anyone in real life?
Not really as far as we're concerned, but I mean, as Glenn said earlier, I think that in a very early stage of the script, the writer took the idea of the boys from himself and one of his best friends when he was younger. But I don't think they got up to any of the stuff that the characters do
No,
in
but
the
of
movie.
course
not, I'm sure not. Okay, well, thanks guys for coming in and talking about the film. We
welcome.
finally got you here now.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Another 3 years we'll be here
always.
with the next one.
Yay!
Hopefully, maybe
Hopefully
a bit
much-
shorter time than that.
Yeah, before then, hopefully.
Anyway.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.